Hey everyone, welcome back to But Why Though, the podcast, where we talk about the things in pop culture that people say matter and ask the question, but why though? Make sure you head over to our Facebook, facebook.com/butwhythoughpc, and our Twitter and Instagram, @butwhythoughpc. We definitely want to get more involved with you all, and we want to hear your fan but why those. Let us know. We'll put it up on the website. Also, if you want to support us a little bit more, head on over to our Patreon. There you'll get access to all of our research notes, early released episodes, as well as a whole bunch of stuff that I cut out from the episode. So if you want extra content, go ahead and head over there. And if you subscribe at the $3 level, you also get some merch. I am in the process of sending stuff out to people right now, and I'm looking to get more stuff done. But if a monthly subscription is just too much, we also have some t-shirts. Go ahead and get one, send us your picture in it, and we'll post it up on our website. But we here at But Why Though want you to know that just you listening is as important as it gets. So share us with your friends, share us with your grandma, share us with whoever you can. Play us while you're at work and make your entire place listen to us. We appreciate it and we love you guys. Also, this is going to be a two-parter. We got into an awesome conversation with our special guest Swara Salih of the Beltway Banthas podcast, and I just didn't think it was good to cut out an entire hour and a half of conversation just to meet our time. So here it goes. Hey everyone, today we're talking about pretty much the gold standard in comic TV universes nowadays. We're talking about the CWverse. That includes Arrow, Flash, Legends of Tomorrow, and Supergirl. As always, I'm your host, Kate, and I'm here with Adrian.
Hey, how's it going?
Matt.
Hello.
And an extra special CWverse fandom stan flag fanboy, I don't know, and also co-host of Beltway Banthas, a Star Wars and Politics podcast, and a upstarting contributor at DC TV podcasts.
Hey guys, how's it going?
Hey.
Good. We're glad to have you back, Swara.
Yeah.
You're awesome.
I'm very happy to be back. I'm glad to meet you too, Matt. Finally,
I was not on the actual other podcast.
yeah, because you don't watch Game of Thrones, right? You need to fix that, man.
So I've been told multiple times.
I think with that, we'll transition into representation as about why though itself. When I was thinking about how like the show does representation, of course, by representation I just mean of minorities and women, sexual orientations and stuff like that. There isn't a whole lot of it that I think stands out, but I think the ones that do stand out very strongly, specifically with Legends, because Legends kind of just puts all of the odd people out, I guess, into the show, so you get a lot more of it. Kate, do you want to talk a little bit about it on Legends?
Yeah, so the big thing that I love about Legends is, so there's this idea of like colorblind casting where you where you cast people of color, but you don't necessarily explore what that means for that character being that race in that universe. So you don't really get anything there, which happens a lot in Flash, Supergirl, and Arrow. But in Legends, because they're time traveling, they don't abide by the most egregious thing I think time traveling shows does, is when you have a black character and they step off the ship in the 1950s, he's not going to have a good time. Legends explores that, and the people are very vocal about that. And they also do that not only with race, but they also do it with women. And Sarah bears the brunt of a lot of this, because not only is she a woman, but she's also a gay woman. And so, which is still, I'm sorry,
she's a bi woman,
because how did that change, I guess, so fast?
Yeah. So the reason I say, I would see her, I know that they keep saying that she's bi, which she isn't when she comes onto Arrow, because she was with Arrow.
She literally left to go on a venture with Ollie.
But then she has 5 years with Nyssa.
Well, I know, but so it's kind of like
not that fast.
And she tries to have sex with like all of the female characters whenever they time travel.
Yeah. Well, I mean, even when she comes back into Arrow that first season, her and Oliver get together.
Yeah,
quite a bit.
But I think it's the fact that I don't think it's necessarily a change. It's just that you don't have to change. You've just been attracted to both
Well,
genders
the only
the
reason I
entire
say
time.
that is because you hit it on.
That's what being bi is. It means that you're attracted to either or across your lifetime.
Well, the only reason I said that was because, like, now when you hear talk like on Legends or anything else, it's what I like women. I like women.
Yeah, so
and it was like, okay, literally the first 2 years of you.
I see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden it's a straight hard line, and then you are now our gay character. When it was like,
So
wait, but on Legends in season 1, like at the end, she had a kiss with Snart, and there was an attraction there.
that was true. Even though it was more,
but I think that was just a kiss with Snart. I don't think it was anything like they overwhelmingly they show, specifically in season 2, she has sex with every woman that she meets.
That's what
she Captain Kirk's the shit out of it.
And it's awesome. And this is where it goes
awesome.
into like
It's
representation
awesome.
of LGBTQ plus characters. Like they do not shy away from it. They don't just say that she has relationships with women. Like she has relationships with women, and you see it happen, and she's unashamed of it. And I think a lot of that has to do with her traveling back in time and having to be in these time periods where she sees how shameful, like how shamed people are who like members of the same sex. In the same arc that you have Jackson going back in the 50s, dealing with a lot of racist stuff. You also have her going in as an orderly and dealing with homophobic stuff as well. And so it's really interesting how they handle it. But you're absolutely right, Matt. It does change from her being bi and more her just being a lesbian. And I don't know why necessarily, because even was it in the Invasion episode of Arrow, she tells Dream Laurel that she prefers girls.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. Like it went from I went with Oliver, I went with Vanessa, then I come back and I'm all with Oliver, all through Oliver, and then all of a sudden it's like I only like
girls. Yeah,
that's it.
Right. You also have Curtis too, so I don't want to like discredit Curtis.
No, Curtis. He
hasn't come up.
Yeah, I was talking about that because it's this hard like flip, and it's not like, oh, I'm a bi character. All of a sudden it's like, damn,
right. I mean, the thing is, like, I have like bi friends, and I just like noticed that. It's like it's not like being bi means that like you go back and forth necessarily, but rather that, as the way I understand it, and listeners, if anyone's bi or gay, like please like message me and let me know.
Let us all know, honestly. Like
let us all know, because like none of us are LGBT, so like we aren't like the best people to speak on this, but just in general, I'm saying like but yeah, the way I understand it, bi means that throughout your lifetime you're attracted to both men and women. So maybe Sarah, as a bi woman, just happened to start to prefer sleeping with women throughout her travels, or maybe she also found it fun, like being able to defy that time stream and defy that norm. So maybe that's like maybe that figures into it as well. But I think it's like important just to like distinct her as a bi character, because representation of that specific group is important, and I think has been lost in a lot of conversation and media stuff.
From the people I've talked to, that like he said that basically it's like we're attracted to men or women, and just kind of like who's attractive, whatnot. And it seems like she turned into a whole draw a line. That's why I was kind of like, okay,
because they do only stress their female relationships. Like it.
That's true.
That is like, and I have heard some critique about it, and it was the same. So John Berman, who plays Malcolm Merlin, is he is a bi character in the Doctor Who universe, in Doctor Who and in Torchwood. And one of the critiques that they had about his character that they also have about Sarah's is that there's this assumption that people who are bisexual are inherently hypersexual. And not able to stay in relationships because they're always doing that. And so a lot of people didn't like how they did that with Jack Harkness. And so they really liked that they were able to put him in a relationship on Torchwood that was committed and devoted. And then, so there is some of that gripe with Sarah, which I see, and like, I obviously can't speak to that. And so I don't want to invalidate that argument. But like with what Adrian said, I really love that they Captain Kirk her. Because she's I'll
be honest, I don't like I don't like that they Captain Character, because like every time she time travels, I'm like, okay, who's she? Like what women are they going to put in history for her to like to go sleep with? And it'd be the same way like if they had Oliver do it. Like I like just get along. It's like it's more of a trope now than it is like her being representation. Which is why which is why I like Curtis's relationship, because Curtis is a black gay man, and they go really, really hard into like his relationship and how it affects
his marriage with Paul.
Yeah. So I really like Curtis's representation in this. And this is too, like, Nissa like really, 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 really loves Sarah.
Yeah.
Like,
oh yeah.
Like, I think she'd be really hurt knowing what Sarah's doing.
Yeah.
I guess for me, like, specifically seeing Sarah as a woman in this situation, I like it because a lot of the times women aren't allowed to express their sexuality. And I don't mean their sexual preference, but their actual sexuality in being sexual beings.
Right,
a lot of the time, like, that's not okay. And so I like that it's happening with her, but I totally see Adrian's critique as valid.
Yeah, I just don't want it to get like overused. You know, I don't want that. I don't want to get what you're saying, what you like, to be lost, like in season 3, where it's like, oh well, she's gonna go have sex with another woman in this. You know, whenever they jump back in time, I want it to still be impactful and powerful that they are doing it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I agree. I just really like seeing a sex positive woman on the screen, but I totally agree with what you're saying. Like, that makes perfect sense.
And then just from, I don't think we have it written down here, and I just thought about it right now. Diggle and Lila being an interracial couple, I think, is super great.
Yes.
And West Allen.
Yeah, and West Allen, just because interracial baby.
And Wally West and Jackie Quick.
Yep, Jesse Quick.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Oh yeah.
I guess I think Diggle and Lila just jumped out because they have like a kid, so I think that's why that one jumped out a little bit more to me.
Right.
Because
it's great. Because I'm a brown white baby.
Like, I personally just really like Diggle and Lila's relationship for a number of reasons. Like, it's my pinnacle for relationships in the CWverse. But like, it is really important to see interracial couples. Like, I mean, obviously, if you've seen their Twitter profiles and stuff, like Matt and I are interracial. Like, it's just like it's there, and I really like that it is in this universe.
Yeah, I'm all about it. Anything else we're missing that you can think of?
Not
the only thing is, I kind of felt bad and thought Curtis, for being as smart as he was, seemed to be totally clueless on his marriage. Of like, oh, I'm about to go. He's about to go choose me and come back, and he gets divorce papers. Like, did you actually think that was gonna work?
That
one was kind of rough.
I was like, yeah,
wait,
like just
what happened?
I forgot. Oh, so in season 5, basically Curtis takes on the Mr. Terrific, and his husband does not like this at all, and basically makes an ultimatum to him. And Curtis goes, well, I want to be Mr. Terrific goes. And all of a sudden, throughout this whole time, Curtis feels he can have both wives. And then he finally gets basically a call from his husband after a few weeks going, hey, let's go to dinner and stuff. And this whole time, he's like, we're getting back together. Paul understood. We're going to do all this stuff. And everybody's like around him like, this is not what's going to happen. Like, why do you think this is a good thing? He's like, oh, don't worry about it. And he goes in there and gets served divorce papers. And it's like a total shell shock to him.
Yeah.
I am so happy I do not watch the show.
The logic behind that just kind of blew me off. Of like, how did you think this was going to happen?
I didn't like Curtis, like, not like just kind of being oblivious to it, but I totally understood why Paul did that. Like,
I understood Paul.
Yeah. Like, I'm hardline. Like, if you're in a relationship with a superhero, but you know that they're a superhero, you do not get to tell them to change and tell them to not be a superhero.
The way they do it on The Flash.
Yes, you don't get to do that. But if you're in a relationship with a superhero and you don't know they're a superhero and then they tell it to you, I'm totally behind you saying, I can't do this. I didn't sign on for you to be like reaching an early death. Like, get out and make your decisions based on that. So,
yeah.
But it made me sad because I did like them.
Like, if you find out someone had a kid and they didn't know they had a kid, you talk about it.
Leave them.
We'll use that. Well, before we transition, we did mention it earlier, but the Hispanic representation on the show is really, really great. And for Kate and I, that's also obviously like very important. Renee is amazing. I love Renee. I love that actor. I love him in Coach
Arrow season 5.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Cisco is obviously great.
Palmer get together.
And
they're actually married for like 3 years.
Yeah, they are. They have that entire life in it's in the 50s, right? That they get left.
Yeah, they get left.
But it's fake. It's not real because destiny and stuff.
Oh
my God.
We'll use that to transition.
Yeah.
We'll use that to transition into relationships. We've talked a lot about this, so I don't think we'll spend too much time on it. But I think biggest.
I do want to say though, like Adrian, like just to point out that there is a lot of racial representation in the show. like an astound, like a whole bunch, especially when you compare it to all the other CW shows that are overwhelmingly white.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
There is still whitewashing that happens with like Ra's al Ghul and stuff, but when you compare it to the other shows that are there, including my favorite Supernatural, there is like no person of color in that show at all, ever, in any season out of 13.
Yeah, Kate, I'm actually really glad that you brought up Ra's al Ghul because, you know, the representation is overall like extraordinary, you know, with the variety of black and brown characters the shows have. But one area in which I think it, you know, for me as a Kurdish man whose family is from the Middle East, from Iraqi Kurdistan, you know, it's like, it's still disappointing in so much media not to have like Middle Eastern representation, to see, hell, Arab representation. I'm Kurdish, which is related to Persian, like we're technically a Persian people, but and that's distinct from Arab, but still I would love to see a real Arab actor because that's at least from the region my family hails from. I am happy to note that in season 3 of Legends of Tomorrow, they will be introducing an Iranian Muslim character as one of the as one of the members of the team.
Oh, nice! I didn't know that.
Yeah, and I think so. The character is going to be called something else in the show because of politics, because of geopolitics in the world. In the original comics, this character's name is Isis. Yeah, so obviously they're not going to call her that in the show. They're calling her something else.
Is she not the god?
I don't know, but anyway, so thank God they're not calling her Isis because that would be terrible. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing them like introduce that character on Legends, and I'm very grateful for that. But that still is like one particular area where I think so much of TV and media can do better, and just to have that Middle Eastern representation as well, and not just portray people from that region of the world as terrorists.
Yeah, and I think also too, I think other than Nissa, who's who is half Asian, and Tatsu, I don't think there's that much Asian representation either. But I think overall, I'm not saying we should accept scraps like by any means, but this is progress specifically for a universe that's so expansive, and I think that is something to celebrate.
Totally.
Specifically with getting a brown dude.
Absolutely.
Renee's awesome. I've loved that actor since Coach Carter.
Same. Oh my God. Okay. So we'll move on to relationships. Like I said, we've covered a lot of this throughout the episode, but just want to hit on it a little bit, just because it's comic books. So what's at the heart of comic books? It's usually family, love, and then hero and villain dynamics. So we won't really talk too much about like the love relationships. I think we've hit it really hard with Olicity and then West Allen. We all know which one's better, I think.
Layla and Diggle.
Legends of Tomorrow has some love relationships. We mentioned it with Ray and Kendra. I think that one's kind of like fake because like I don't think she ever really loved Ray, which is very sad for Ray because like Ray was like, "Hey man,
I love you."
This was legit.
Ray Palmer is the most unfortunate, tragic person where he always ends up with loving somebody that unfortunately Destiny said you're not.
That was just terrible. That whole arc of the Hawks was terrible.
Yeah.
I agree.
It was so forced. I mean, what would have been better would be for Kendra, like spoilers for end of season 1 of Legends. What would have been better is for Kendra to say, no, I'm not going to go with Destiny. No, I'm going to make my own Destiny. I'm going to choose whom I love. But because that's what happened in Justice League.
Yeah,
Justice League Unlimited, which was great. The Shayera is awesome. She's bad. She got with Green Lantern in the end.
I was about to say, having Hot Girl show up in Flash got me stupidly excited and hoping that they would make John Diggle John Stewart or bring John Stewart into the universe somehow because they had Hot Girl. And I'm still pissed that Diggle isn't John Stewart, by the way.
Yeah, I'm not pissed about that necessarily, but what I am pissed about is that you cast I mentioned earlier about how the Hawks, the Thanagarians in Justice League were Hispanic, and they cast an actress of color. Forget her name. But I think she might be half black, half Hispanic, or
I think she's Afro Latina.
Yeah, she's Afro-Latina, which is awesome. When I saw that casting, I was like, yes, they are doing what they did in the original Justice League cartoon, and like they're going to like move forward with this. But her character arc ended up being a dud. It was like, I'm a barista. I don't know how to like do better with this. I don't know how to do anything, and I'm just gonna like lapse into what Destiny has in store for me, and it's just like a crappy arc.
Oh yeah. I also just want Haircut to find somebody who loves him as much as he loves them.
I know.
I love him.
I also want Ray to stop messing stuff up whenever they go back in time.
Yes.
But that's a different argument for something else. So we've talked a lot about family as well. I mean, you know, Thea and Oliver, our brother and sister, their parents are dead. You know, that, like I said, it's really dark. You know, for Oliver to live, his dad shot himself in the face. Like it's really
in front of him, and then his mother is stabbed with a sword while him and Theo watch.
Yeah,
it's dark,
pretty dark. And then you get the stuff with Renee this past season with Renee and his daughter. So there's this, and then of course you have the Lances with poor Daddy Lance just gets his heart ripped out every season, it seems like.
Oh gosh.
Yeah. I don't know how he's
They wondered how he wasn't an alcoholic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I will say this though, and this is just like my personal thing. I respect people who have children and know when they're not fit to take care of them. And so it really pissed me off when Daddy Lance just brought Renee's daughter to be in front of him. Like, I know that was supposed to be a heartwarming moment, but I also know, like, hey, you know that Renee's a vigilante now, and you know that something happened to make Renee realize he can't have his daughter. Maybe you should respect his choices instead of forcing this on him and working out your like sadness and grief for your daughters on him. But I can understand how it's like, oh, happy too. But I was just, it just really made me mad. It made me like probably more mad than it should have. But yeah.
You gotta take some happy in Arrow. You gotta give me something. And Flash, it's definitely more about Joe West, Iris West, and Barry, which is kind of weird. It's like kind of like growing up with your sister and then like you're dating her and getting married.
Yeah,
that's part kind of weird. So I like the Joe West and Barry dynamic just because like even though Barry has a dad in that universe, who's in jail, he still sees Joe as his dad. And I think it's beautiful. Like
what made me upset is so not only do Joe and Barry get Barry's actual dad out of prison, he then basically runs off because he doesn't want to be by Barry. And I was like, that is a shitty thing to do.
It's
you go, Joe West.
He may have been his father, but Joe West is his daddy.
Like that was so. I'm sorry, that was awful.
I know.
I don't care that guy's gone as long as Joe doesn't leave. Whenever I think Joe's gonna die every single season, and I just hope he doesn't because I think he's a great dad. It makes my heart
hurt because I love Joe so much because he doesn't give a crap. He doesn't give a crap that Barry isn't his. He's his, damn it. And it just makes my heart just like, oh, I love you, Joe.
That's why I like that Barry accepted that.
Yeah.
Because his dad left him again after he broke him out of prison.
And then you have Iris and her mom. That whole storyline was a little crazy. Cisco and his brother, I think is heart-wrenching.
So basically, it's heart-wrenching and it's sad, but the problem I have with this is basically Cisco spends half the season blaming Barry, which is fine because he makes things, but he makes this huge deal out of somebody that you saw like once every 10 years. Like, come on.
I agree.
He was out here fighting for you, saving your life, and he made a mistake. It sucks. You punish him, but not the whole season when you see this guy like his brother was a dick to him. His brother like hated him half the time.
I think I only feel bad because I really love the actor that played his brother. That's like the only reason.
Yeah, but it's just like Matt, I understand that. You see, the thing is like we can understand why Cisco would be upset with someone whose actions resulted in the death of a family member, even if they were estranged, it's still a family member. But you're right in that again, goes back to execution. We barely spent any time with Cisco's brother. And when we did spend time with Cisco's brother, he was a dick. Like, he wasn't likable. He just, like, made fun of Cisco all the time. And, like, the fact that you had Cisco, like, constantly blaming Barry through something that Barry didn't know was going to happen. That was like, yes, Barry was being reckless, but it's like the most distant butterfly effect for this sort of thing to happen. And it just didn't make sense for the character of Cisco himself, as logical a person he would be, and to be blaming Barry like that was just one of the several failings of The Flash season 3.
Yeah.
Which, again, I really love the show. I admit that it's not that good.
Yeah, no, so that's what bugged me too, was like, even I think the last time they did meet and they kind of reconciled was only because basically Cisco's brother nearly got them both killed.
Yeah, then Cisco had to tell Snart that Barry was the Flash.
Yeah, he sells out Barry for some, and it was just...
Which I thought that was going to be where Cisco was like, oh, okay, I get it, maybe I shouldn't be that mad, because they actually point out to him, you gave away Barry's identity to save your brother. Like, we all do stupid things for family members.
Hey, his brother really got him killed, never talked to him, and he finally did, basically used him to try to help him.
Yeah, but I do want to go back to, I guess for me, my problem with it, and I guess it's just because, like, my concept of family, like, it's never been that, like, blood makes family and you have to support your blood no matter what. Like, I don't believe that at all. I think Team Flash is a family, and I think that, like, the fact that, like, Cisco and Caitlin and, you know, all the different adopted Welleses are a unit and they're a family, and Joe is the daddy of that entire unit, and, like, he brings that wisdom and that love and that support. And I also really love that, like, secrets are throughout the entire, like, CWverse, but I think the way they handled on The Flash, with the exception of Cisco, is better than the way they happen on Arrow, because a lot of the times on Flash, they work through them, and it doesn't necessarily make, like, we're not going to have an entire season where somebody goes off to train with assassins to now kill everybody because you, like, didn't tell them something. Like, that to me makes no sense, Thea. So,
and I just want to jump in and say another wonderful example of family is what we see on Supergirl between Kara and her adopted sister Alex, and the things they have to go through together and trying to adjust with one another through childhood, and then, like, having this really strong sisterhood and constantly having each other's backs throughout, and seeing how sisters would really interact is, like, really wonderful to see. And then the fact that you got Martian Manhunter in there, who's basically their space dad, who this is borrowing a term from my friend Carly Lane, who's one of the hosts of Supergirl Radio, another DC TV podcast. Like, John Jones is the space dad. He's always supportive, and their unit of trying to take down crime in National City. And again, goes back to what you're saying, Kate. Blood does not make family.
Which leads into the Legends family dynamic. Yeah, which leads into the Legends family dynamic, which is the people on your ship are your family, and you're going to go to war for those people, and you're going to fight for them, and you're going to save them, and you're going to be awesome.
Even better would be Mick and Rory, even they used that whole season 1.
Rory and Snart?
Whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, no, Rory and Snart are brothers. Like, I don't care what anybody says. That was heart-wrenching, guys. I cried really hard. So
I think we talked a lot on family for all the shows. One thing I do want to mention quickly as it relates to relationships is we really haven't talked too much about the villains in any of these shows. We focused really, really hard on the heroes, but I think the villain hero dynamics in these shows, at least primarily I would say for Arrow compared to the Flash, because the Flash has different kind of like hero dynamics, but the Arrow, like,
I'm faster than you. No, I'm faster than you.
Exactly. But Arrow kind of has like some pretty like deep cut villains. Like you have Slade, Malcolm Merlin, Ra's al Ghul for some extent, and then Adrian Chase in this last season. Like, those are tough decisions, and I can kind of see why it's hard for Oliver, like why he would struggle to kill some of these people. because, you know, one of them he's like known forever. You know, one of them, like, the only reason he survived on an island was because of one of these characters. Adrian Chase was like his district attorney for so long. So like it
happened directly from what he did.
Yeah. So it's crazy stuff that I think makes, for all of like the shortcomings that we mentioned, like in Arrow, I think the villains in Arrow are pretty good, except for Damien Dark. I don't know if anyone agrees or disagrees with that, but I like the villains in Arrow.
I agree. Yeah. I think they're complicated villains, which is good, because there are some times where I found myself like kind of like, well, I mean, not Merlin in The Undertaking. Like, I didn't root for like Undertaking Merlin, but there are times where he pops back up where I'm like, no, I can totally get behind what you're doing, Merlin. Like, I was see this.
Full-fledged Adrian Chase for a while until he basically went psychopath Adrian Chase, and then his logic became very flawed.
So you mean when he switched from Prometheus to Adrian Chase?
Pretty much.
Yeah. That's season 5, and obviously some of us have not watched it because it's, you know, very deep cuts. But Adrian Chase is really good, and I like that character. Like, it's good development. And what do I like? Development.
Slade is really good though too.
Slade is amazing.
He's awesome, and I love Slade in everything.
Yeah, like it's one of those things where some of these characters are so good that I wish they, like, DC would just pick them up and put them into their cinematic universe. Like, I don't want anyone other than Slade, than the Slade we got in CWverse. I don't want any other Barry Allen other than this Barry Allen, which is like a different point we can get to a little bit later when we talk about world building. But the Flash itself, the Flash comics have lots of side villains, so of course the Flash is going to be filled with
the Rogues Gallery.
Yeah, the Rogues Gallery, and then just all of these like obscure villains that I had to like go Google sometimes because like who is that? And then you get Mark Hamill cameos, which is always great.
Yes, the trickster. Yes,
yeah, so good.
I'm your daddy.
But like the main like villain, so like Edward Thawne as the Reverse Flash, like that whole, you know, mind F, it was crazy. Zoom, and then
I would say for season 1, Flash is definitely their best, like their best.
Yeah, of course.
Building and like the I guess story, the twists and turns made sense, and it kept you guessing the entire time.
Yeah, and I agree with your point that you made earlier about Zoom, like the reveal kind of being dumb. But I remember watching that season and then just all of like the talk throughout it of like who is Zoom. I think was like one of my favorite parts of following, you know, episode by episode, because just the theories and like, oh, well, this person was in this scene but not in this scene, which is why I was really hoping it was going to be Patty. And then you had the whole Savitar arc in this last season, which I don't know how you felt about that, Swara.
The Savitar thing. Okay. So when they initially explained it, when Barry, so again, spoilers for Flash season 3. Turns out that Savitar is an alternate version, or a time remnant. It's confused. Yeah, a time remnant of Barry that was ostracized by his friends and family after the quote real Barry died. Which, why would they ostracize him? I don't understand. That didn't make sense. Basically, when they first showed Barry Savitar reveal himself and explain to present day Barry why he did what he did and how he got there, I was just watching it and thinking, like, it didn't make any sense. It was overly raw. It was complicated. It was just trying to give the audience like an explanation for what was going on. And that particular part honestly was the lowest point of The Flash for me. Again, The Flash is still my favorite TV show, but I'll recognize its flaws. And it just seemed like, I don't know how you're trying to jam this in right now. But later, when we saw Savitar Barry interact with other characters and talk about the emotional stakes that he was going through, that's what really hooked me into that. That was, you see, it's, I think, like a recurring theme throughout all of this is that you need a balance of logic and good acting and good scripts in these shows, because, you know, they say, for example, a really good actor can sell a bad script.
I say that all the time.
Yeah. It's like, you need a balance of these various elements to make something that's really compelling and that the audience will take in. And I feel like, because this is such a big TV universe with so many different characters and so many different arcs going around, it can be very difficult to keep track of. And I still love this universe so much because you still have so many amazing highs and you've got a couple of lows, but as a whole, it's just still like really compelling and more than the sum of its parts, even the parts I don't like Arrow, for example.
Yeah, no, I think that the fact that Eobard Thawne is used in multiple places, and I think he's a really good villain from Flash. Mm-hmm. But I
Agreed.
Definitely think
I think he's the best villain. Totally.
Savitar was weird. I mean, Matt, we just finished watching The Flash like right before this. I don't know. What did you think about Savitar?
I thought he looked cool. I like the suit.
Yeah.
I wish they would explain how Barry got half a face.
Yes.
Out of all that.
How did your face turn to thin crust pizza?
Because that would have kind of given me at least some more, kind of like how Swara was saying, how like, why did they shun you or something, I guess. Like, what happened exactly? I didn't really get that whole first part.
They shunned him because he was ugly.
I didn't get Caitlin falling in line behind him immediately. That was weird.
Oh my God.
That was weird.
But
I honestly think that's why when I first thought of Caitlin, I was like, meh, because I just really don't like season 3. Meh. I really don't like season 3 Caitlin.
Yeah, me either. For Legend of Tomorrow, you kind of have some of the main. Well, you have the main villain, some of the main villains that were basically defeated in the other shows in it. So you have just lasting dynamics, like Damien Dark killed Laura Lance. So obviously, like, there's hate there and stuff like that. But I think what Legends of Tomorrow does as a time travel show is that when they're fighting these villains, they have to think about like time continuum ramifications, which sometimes just gets a little confusing for me. Like that stuff, yeah, like that was a little bit more confusing to me sometimes than like time remnants, because like they don't follow the same rules and stuff sometimes. But they have to think like, do you change time to save people, or do you leave it the same to follow? Do you change your own future to undo bad things? Like, so do you undo the creation of your daughter? In this case of Dr. Stein, like while they were going back in time and following the Legion. So I think it just presents different morality questions than we get in like, do I kill or do I not kill? That you get more in like Flash and Arrow, which I think is good because what I think is a good transition into our morality part. Kate, do you want to talk a little bit about that? Because I know you had some good points on it.
Yeah, so I think for me, like overall, and this ties into every single one of the different shows in the CWverse, and I think it also for the biggest part for me is like all these things take into account, like whether or not are the legends in and of themselves the bad guys sometimes by making changes and making these aberrations, which oddly enough, I think I just love this show so much that I've worked really hard at understanding the time quakes and the time aberrations and how that works. It is still really convoluted, but like I really love time travel shows, so I really love this.
Yeah, when I say I don't understand it as it relates to Flash, because like
yes, they
how come there's no time quakes in the sea? Is it just like because Speed Force?
Well, no, it's because they're in the time rift. So like they're actually in like the time slurry. So when time changes, it like they feel it in the time area. Like they're
and Barry doesn't create time quakes because Speed Force?
Yeah, well, because he's in the Speed Force. Like the time rift is what they use to travel through time. Speedsters rewrite everything and start an entirely new timeline. Whereas, at least from how I understand it, the Time Masters and stuff, they work on the linear area of time. Like they don't work within the other universes, the parallels, the multiverse, or any of these alternate things that the speedsters do.
I just want Time Ghost to come kill. I just want them to fight Time Ghost.
That would be
like
awesome.
They do in the Flash.
That would be awesome.
Sorry. Morality.
Yeah. The whole morality thing, I think one of the main things that comes up in all of them is the needs of the many versus the needs of the few. So do you actually kill somebody to save a whole bunch of people, or do you stay with your moral on your moral compass to not kill? And I think that this also, for the legends, I think they feel it a lot more too, because they're actively in these situations where they know what's going to happen at the end of this. So if in season 2 you have the storyline where Jackson goes back to the Civil War and he has to see slaves the first time he sees it, and he sees the atrocities that this one of them is going, like, that she's going through, he has to say, hey, we can't interfere. This is like, we have to stay on the plan to save the United States and to make sure the Confederacy doesn't win. But then he has a second moment where he's like, no, we have to free them. I absolutely cannot deal with the pain and the horror of what I've seen them go through. And so for them, like, it's really tricky to balance the needs of the many and the needs of the few when you're actually living, knowing what's going to happen at the end of that. And knowing that you can have something that you can have an immediate effect, which is also why I don't take issue with Felicity nuking a town, because it was a smaller town than the other town. But, and it's also like, when is killing acceptable is another one, and whether or not killing somebody makes you a hero or automatically makes you a villain. This has to do a little bit with the Flash, because he's absolutely no kill policy, which is a really big problem, because he shows mercy to the wrong people, and it usually comes back to bite him in the butt. But it's probably more prevalent in Arrow, because Arrow does transition from going on a murderous rampage, killing all the bad people in Star City, to not doing that, to then doing it in extreme cases. And when people find out that he was a killer, because apparently you're not able to put the Hood and the Green Arrow together, even though they're wearing the exact same freaking costume, you automatically say that he's a serial killer and see him as something bad. Like, this idea of what killing is acceptable, it makes you as an audience think through these moral questions, as well as the characters in the show. And ultimately, this leads to Oliver and Barry being diametrically opposed to each other. Like, they're not the same. And like, I think, Matt, like, you probably have the best, like, you always have the best explanation for that, like, from their first crossover.
Oh, just because the first crossover, when basically Barry shows up in I can't remember the thing, Star City. Yeah, because when they go to Central City, it's a lighthearted thing, and Oliver's like, oh. And when the first time that Barry comes to Star City in the crossover, which he learns when Oliver's like, the world's not great, people die, and basically shows him that this is a dark side of like what everything happens. And Barry's mind just seems to get blown by this fascination of like, oh, this happens and this bad things happen.
Yeah, because like, it's also really important to know that the villains that we were talking about in Flash, they're robbing stuff a lot of the time, and like every now and then they kill. Whereas like Arrows is like people killing many other people in the city or selling drugs. So his is, it's a lot darker, and it's a lot, he has to deal with a different set of circumstances than Barry does. So it's a lot easier for Barry not to kill.
Well, I'll just like harken back to what Kate was talking about with Jax's episode during the Civil War. I thought that was absolutely extraordinary. I thought the way they delicately handled the situation, he and Amaya particularly were in, and it totally goes to your theme of the needs of the many outweighing the needs of the few, and how the Legends' actions in that moment will affect the rest of the time stream. But they need to do what's right and free the slaves, which, spoiler alert, they do in that episode, which is amazingly compelling and heart-wrenching, and to see what they go through. It's also the one with the zombies. Like, they put in some fun as well as in such a dramatic and compelling episode. I think it's one of Legends' best episodes overall. And Barry has to go through that too, when he's constantly mucking up the timeline through his recklessness, and he has to learn from his mistakes, which is something I really appreciate Barry for. Again, he's still my favorite character throughout. While I acknowledge his flaws, I feel that he's very relatable. And to be honest, what would we do if we were in his situation and we had the opportunity to go back in time and save our parents if they had been murdered. You know, it's even though they do have flaws, sometimes they're annoying flaws, they're still relatable flaws, and that's what makes them such compelling characters. And relates back to the theme of morality throughout all of these shows, which is really great.
I think season 2 Harry does a pretty good job of this, because basically he's sent there, and as much as he wants to do good, he actually is a good character. He basically knows that Zoom has his daughter, and he basically has to make a choice to save his daughter while trying to, one, help the team / derail the team the entire season until they finally realize that I didn't want to do this, but I want my daughter.
Yeah.
And as much as you guys knew the other one, like, I don't know who you people are, and this person cares about me. Which he actually murders, I think, 3 people in that season to make a serum to drain his stuff.
Yep.
And no one cares.
Well, I think why he's my favorite character, because, I mean, bad as it is, he does make, out of all the characters, he seems to be the one person that makes the most logical decision throughout
he makes the hard calls.
Throughout the whole all the seasons. Like, there's so much what drives me crazy, and I don't know whether it's just because of the seat, as I like to call it, CW, and he shows up. As Swara talked about soap operaing things, some of the logic, as much as we go with the morality, even the logic of morality for a lot of these characters, even main characters such as Oliver, or I think even Barry sometimes, just totally just like becomes absent-minded. And it really hurts me in The Flash because they're all like genius scientists a lot. And when it comes to, like, I can develop technology to jump planets through multiverses and parallel universes, but I can't come up with a logical, like, Cisco of, like, oh, Barry destroyed my entire family for somebody I saw once every 10 years. And it was just, for people that are that logical and smart, and for the way they think to do a lot of the stuff they do, to fail on such certain levels kind of just bugs me a lot.
It's an emotional level versus, like, a logical level, though.
Yeah, but I mean...
I can see why it'd be a failing.
Well, it's a failing, but most time... At least in that case of being that smart, I'm assuming at least you're emotional, which obviously, as Harrison well proved throughout a lot of the seasons, whatever he is, a lot of the emotion should just get wiped out at a point.
Yeah.
I mean, you're at this point where you're jumping. I don't know. I just don't see how you can make tough calls and have to go and make these devices and do as much stuff as you're able to do and see everything as smart as they are, but fail to an emotional side so quickly.
I think that's why Team Arrow, Team Flash, and Team Legends, like, I think they all need to have somebody on there who is willing to make that really tough call of doing the thing that doesn't feel right emotionally, but what is right in the end. You know, Rip does that for all of season 1 of Legends, and people get mad at him for it, but he's like, I don't care. Granted, he is being driven by the want to save his wife, which is also wrong, but he is able to make those tough calls. And I think whereas Oliver is quick to choose the most extreme version in those tough calls, I think Diggle mostly balances him out in those situations. Like, I think the bromance between Oliver and Diggle is one for the ages and one that's needed to round Oliver out like completely when it comes to making these decisions, especially when they are fighting. And I also just don't have a problem with killing people when they need to be killed, which is why I have a big problem with the love wins everything. We're going to invite Evil Barry into our lair after he tried to kill us all and offer to help him. No, put a bullet in his head. So
he's too fast. He would catch it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think all that conversation just kind of shows how not like each show handles it, but like even down to like how each character handles it in each of the shows. It provides a really good inclusive universe of there's no black and white. I don't think any of the characters really see it that way. They're all going to be presented something where they're going to have to make a tough choice at some point, which I think is really great and why this show is so great. So as my final but why though, and kind of my wrapping it back around to the end, is just this world is done just so well that I really do think it's a template for, if any, not even just comic book, but like if any series wants to make a multi-show series that is all interconnected, I think they do a really, really good job of it. I'm not sure if it's because it's separated from the cinematic universe, so they can kind of just do whatever they want, and they're not beholden on what's going to happen like in the next movie. I don't know if that has anything to do with it, because you do have that issue of them killing off all the Suicide Squad members. but I would say that I like the CWverse more than I like the Marvel Netflix universe, for a lot of the reasons that we talked, a lot of the reasons why we talked about today. And their crossovers are really good. You've heard us talk about the crossovers multiple times because there are lots of crossovers. I think they do it really well. This universe is, it has lots of representation, even though it does need more. There are tough questions to be asked. It's entertaining. It generates conversation. At the end of the day, I think that's what you want these shows to do. You want someone to spend 2 hours on a podcast talking about who they liked and who they didn't like. It's not just one note. There's differences of opinions, and I think that's just what makes really, really good shows. So that's it for me. I think that's my overall But Why Though, and I really enjoyed this episode. And I hope we get to talk more about stuff like this where we all have differences of opinions, because it makes the best conversations for why pop culture matters, in my opinion.
Well said.
Final thoughts for CWverse. I really enjoy it. I still need to watch, I guess, Legends of Tomorrow Season 2. Haven't caught up to that. I was kind of, sidetracked with other stuff while I'm so far behind on stuff. As far as setting up for in the cinematic universe, I think I like it way better than DC Cinematic Universe. There's the fact that they made them separate really bugs me, and I think it causes a lot of disconnects. And then obviously Arrow spent basically a season and a half having to kill off all the characters just because of this separate stuff. And then as far as versus the Marvel Netflix, that's a tough one, because I guess it depends on seasons. Because obviously Marvel only has Daredevil's had 2 seasons, and they're the most.
Yeah.
Whereas Arrow's on season 5, just finished season 5, about to start season 6. So I wish I'd get a few more seasons under Marvel to see. And obviously the episode count wise, because 23 episodes versus 13 per season.
With the exception of Legends, who gets just pushed to the side with 17 episodes.
Yeah. But I like how they do connect them all together, and all the crossovers are very well. Even though I was very disappointed in the Invasion, because at least from the Invasion storyline, I know Batman's a big part of that, which obviously they can't bring in. And the Flashpoint ended up being a lot different than the Flashpoint that I know of, or that I thought with Thomas Wayne. So I guess the hard part with the CWverse that bugs me, as much as I like it, is some of the characters and some of the stories they're using, they're just missing and they're lacking in that part, and so it's hard to fully connect when I know I'm this is not what I'm used to. But I think for what they've been able to work with, I think they've done a really good job. And I think Arrow really redeemed itself, at least for season 5. And I'm actually really excited considering the way it finished.
Yeah. I think my biggest gripe with Arrow, with not just Arrow, but with Arrow, because it has the most seasons and it has the most women. Flash doesn't have that many women on the show at all. That has always been my contention with the CWverse, is because I want there to be so much more, and I feel like they really drop a ball with some of the people they try to bring into the spotlight. But I think season 5 Arrow, season 3 Flash, and season 2 Legends, I think it really shows that they're starting to put more into their side characters and start to build out a lot of the people that they've let kind of fall to the wayside. So I'm hoping we get more of that, because in season 5 Arrow, you're learning about the characters that Oliver has let onto the team more so than you would have in other seasons, which is really important to me, because I want to care about them just as much if they're going to be on the screen, like Oliver. But I think overall, it definitely sets a standard. I mean, it's not the first comic book TV show. Matt and I had this talk in the car. I had said, well, Smallville is what makes CWverse happen. But I think Smallville is the reason that you can have the CWverse, not because it's a superhero show, but because CW was the network that had already done it. So CW is the platform for this because they've already been successful at it once before. And so I think that's why they were able to invest in these other characters and make a universe. Also because CW greenlights everything. So if you're going to build a big universe, it's going to be on theirs.
Greenlight Constantine.
They didn't greenlight Constantine. I would give up the whole CWverse for Constantine, though, honestly. I think it's really good. I think it sets a standard. Like Adrian said, I think that it should definitely be emulated. I think compared to Marvel's television series type things, it definitely blows it out of the water. The Netflix universe, I think it's too different for me to compare the two. And I just don't like, I feel like when I tune into the CWverse, I'm wanting something very different than when I tune into the Marvel Netflix universe. But screw the DCEU and Warner Brothers for ruining Arrow for 2 seasons. That's what I'm going to end it on. What about you, Swara?
Give us that theme of hope to finish this show out. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay, because literally that's what I love so much about this universe. It's optimistic, it's hopeful, it inspires people to do good in the face of dire circumstances, and it's got such great, lively, wonderful characters and various different types of characters from various different backgrounds who interact and who, in many ways, I feel like act as a hyper focused sense of real life of how people may act in the real world. And in terms of comparing it to other comic book universes, I'm very glad that it is not like with the DCEU or with DC films, because this allows it to have better and more freedom and better storytelling overall. I think that it does the best. And at one point early on in the Flash, I was like, oh, I really want, the Superman, Wonder Woman, and Batman to be in this universe. I really want, DC to just let go of that. But then I realized, you know what? I like these characters better than most of those characters, except Wonder Woman. The thing is, we still have Supergirl, whom I've always loved more than Superman. And we even have Superman in Supergirl, yes, which is great. And I really love that. And I really love that interpretation of the character. And I can't wait to see Lois Lane on there, come in and out. But anyway, I actually do like it better than Marvel Netflix. I actually think that Marvel TV shows have suffered from being in the same universe as the films. I don't think that they've really reaped any benefits of that, to be perfectly frank. I think that it would have been just better to they are essentially, in my opinion, separate universes, because they never really acknowledge each other. And from what I've heard, even the studio people in the Marvel films and Marvel TV don't even really like each other. That's something I've heard, funnily enough. But anyway, I think that, like, going back to what I was saying, it's really that Marvel TV doesn't have that freedom of storytelling that DC TV does. And the thing is, with DC, you've got the multiverse, and that allows for, various interpretations of all of these characters. So, it's a very simple thing to have Ezra Miller's Flash and Grant Gustin's Flash existing, on TV and film, basically. And but I love this.
I'm sorry, I'm so bitter about that.
Oh no, that's fair. Because I thought that was stupid. I love the Suicide Squad. They had an Arrow. Maybe they would have kept me watching Arrow if they had it. I don't know. But still, I overall love this universe. I think it has amazing storytelling, and I think everyone needs to check out at least one or two of these shows, because I think they'll really get hooked. It's really great.
I mean, if we're a good sounding board for this, like Matt said earlier on, we're all on completely different parts of the spectrum of what we like in our entertainment. So there's something out there for you if you're watching this.
Totally.
Yeah. So, Swara, why don't you tell everyone where they can find you and go a little bit deeper into that? Plug away, please.
Yeah, so you can find me online on Twitter at Swara Salih 1. You can find my podcast, Beltway Banthas, which covers the intersection between politics and Star Wars, at Beltway Banthas on Twitter, and subscribe to us on iTunes if you're interested in discussion of the political parallels within Star Wars and the real world, or viewing politics through the lens of Star Wars. We cover all of that. Just find us on iTunes through the name Beltway Banthas. You can follow my co-host, Stephen Kent, on Twitter at Stephen_Kent89. That's Stephen with a PH. I'm also a new contributor to the DC TV podcast network. I'm going to be writing some articles for them, like throughout the season, relating to the Flash, Supergirl, and Legends. And you need to those shows include the Flash podcast, Supergirl Radio, Legends of Tomorrow podcast, and Classic DC TV, and Quiver, the Green Arrow podcast. They're all really fantastic shows. You all should check them out. And one more plug, I've got something else relating to Star Wars, a Facebook group called Sounds from a Galaxy Far, Far Away, where we discuss everything in the realm of Star Wars and music, John Williams, Michael Giacchino, and everything else. And if you're interested in joining, just send a member request and I'll accept you. So yeah, those are all my plugs.
And I will include a very detailed list of everything in the show notes for this podcast and in our About Our Guests tab on our website. So make sure you follow Swara. If you love us, you'll do it. And if you don't love us, you might love him more. So follow him. As always, you can find me at ohmymythrandir on Instagram and Twitter. Adrian?
Yep, you can find me on Twitter at superruiz93, SUPERRUIZ 93. And the next time I guess you hear from me, I'll have my Star Wars wedding. So fun times.
Yay!
And we'll be posting pictures of that.
Yeah, so be sure to follow me on social media for all those great pictures. It's going to be lots of fun. If you weren't so far away, Swara, I'd invite you, but time zones.
That's why we have time travel. You can find me on Twitter at datm18, DATTM18.
Yep. And Swara, what music do you want us to exit the show with?
The Flash TV show theme, totally.
Flash Gordon? Flash!